All right. As far as injuries, we were just kind of mental day today, but the guys that did not participate, Joe Noteboom, Jordan Fuller, Troy Reeder, Rob Havenstein with a veteran rest day. And other than that, we're in good shape. We're just taking it a day at a time, so we'll use all the time that we have. So really no further information on him right now.
Sean, everyone is going to talk, obviously this is a playoff game, but everyone is going to talk about this matchup with Jerry. Just what are your initial thoughts on this thing?
Yeah, I think that, kind of like I've said, he's done a great job for them. I mean, they're one of the top offenses the last couple years. He's a really good player. He did a lot of really good things here, for the 4 years that we were together. And so that's why they won their division and they're hosting a playoff game. So it's going to be an excellent challenge for us.
You talked about your appreciation for your time with Jared growing over time. Like, what were some of the things that you weren't able to take stake of in the moment during your time with him?
As far as what?
You said your appreciation for your time.
I just think just growing as a person, handling every situation the way that you want to with perspective, respect, appreciation. The thing that I'll never run away from are mistakes that I've made in previous instances. But when you look back on it, the gratitude for those 4 years, all the good memories that we had, and then when you end up making a change, that ended up being difficult. And could it have been handled better on my end? Absolutely. And I'll never run away from that. But the further you get away from it, the more that you try to grow as a man, as a person, as the leader that you want to become. He deserved better than the way that it all went down. I'll acknowledge that, and I think he knows that too, and I'm not afraid to admit to those things. But I think we're all better, being able to look back on those things, and I do have more appreciation for him as time goes on.
Sean, just late in the season, how do you practice? Can you practice silent counts and speakers and all that stuff, or is it just experience?
No, you do. We were operating in the noise, even in the walkthrough. Matthew did a great job. I thought the offensive line and the skill players, and so it's going to be a great atmosphere and environment. So that's absolutely something that we're going to be working on all week, and we got to be able to handle that.
Sean, do you have a past relationship with Dan Campbell?
I don't. I mean, just the respect I have for him coaching wise, done a great job there. I remember him as a player, and then. I'm a fan of coaching, so we have interactions at league meetings and things like that, but no pre-existing relationship.
Sean, do you appreciate the magnitude of what it means for Stafford to go back to Detroit after all that time there? Is there any way that you can help him deal with that, sort of the emotion or off-the-field issues as far as going back, the reception he might get?
Yeah, I think the big deal is all the great things that he did for that city. For that organization. I think there's a lot of appreciation on both ends. I know he feels that way. I know they do about him. It's pretty unique to get an opportunity to go back there and play them in the playoffs, but I would imagine the appreciation that city has for football and for the human being that he is, it'll be, where they're saying, hey, we appreciate everything, and then we're rooting for the Lions to try to beat the Rams. But it's a real credit to just what a special person and player Matthew's been over the course of his career. And, I think that's what stands out to me.
Do you have any concerns about his emotional state as far as handling all that attention?
No, I think he'd be a human being. I think it would be, not being human being to not feel a lot of different emotions. But he's put our team in a position to go play a meaningful game, and he's got a lot of history there. I think it's real to feel those types of things, but once you get into the game, let's be totally immersed in the moment. We got a lot of confidence in him, and I want him to just be able to cut it loose and play well with his teammates.
We know he's very to himself and on a lot of things, but as you've gotten to know him over the last few years, was there anything that sort of had slipped out in your conversations about how much that place meant to him through his young adulthood?
Well, I just think the time spent there, when you're somewhere for 12 years and you look at, all the kids that, he and Kelly had, the 4 beautiful girls. And I think there's just a bunch of memories. I mean, so much of his life was spent there. And so it comes up in conversations all the time. And I know how much he appreciates the relationships. I mean, I think one of the coolest things you can see is, when he was mic'd up when we played them a couple years ago, and the love and appreciation that all the people from that organization have towards him and him towards them, that you just can't fake that interaction that occurs. And he's as real as it gets, and that's why, whether it's teammates, coaches, people that have been around him, everybody loves this guy because of the way he handles himself, the competitor he is, and I could go on and on.
You saw you kind of touched on this on Monday, but with Matthew, how beloved he is at Ford Field, do you talk with him about just his pregame routine and a allowing for like extra time as he tries to make his way out to warm-ups and likely might be stopped by like everybody along the
Yeah,
line?
I think, I don't, Lindsay. He's got such a rhythm and routine that fits his schedule. So don't get in the way of that. I think you want to be there as an ear. And then, we're trying to keep it, like we talked about, it's a different type of game in terms of the history that he has there, but it's a playoff game. These are big time opportunities. This is why you get into this, is for opportunities to go compete against one of the best teams in the NFL in a great, road atmosphere. And so he's been in these types of situations before. And so I think he'll have his rhythm and routine, and however he wants to adjust, that's up to him, and I'll defer to him on that.
Before the trade, if you can remember watching film of him that last season in Ford Field, is there anything that sticks out to you about any game or any moment, and how much or what do you think the biggest thing that's changed from his last time at Ford Field to now with you guys and everything that's happened?
I've studied him for a long time, and the creativity, the ownership, the understanding of what he's seeing, the ability to be able to make all different types of throws, the toughness, the competitiveness, all those things really stood out. And that was consistent in the film that you really watched from the previous year when you're talking about the 2020 season. He had a thumb issue that he was working through there, ended up playing through that. And so I was just impressed with the ownership of all the different situational things. And then you do your background. You find out about, the person, and you can't hear enough good things. And it's, it was something that we felt was fortunate to be able to, get him on board. And he's done a great job for us.
Is it difficult separating the personal relationship from the professional relationship?
No, it isn't, because I think that, those things go hand in hand. Football is about, these relationships and continuing to learn and continuing to grow and not be afraid of, all right, hey, how do you best handle things as you're continuing to try to mature as a person and do right by people that you love and care about. And so you acknowledge, and I think you got to be honest about all those feelings that exist, whether it's you're going against previous players, previous coaches. But once the game is kicked off, it's about the Rams versus the Lions. That's where our focus and concentration is this week. And while I totally respect and understand the outside narratives, I got to believe that's the same thing for them in regards to how do we go win this game as a team? How do we play complementary football? And what does each person need to do within the framework of their roles to help us go be successful and enjoy it?
And I know you have some thoughts on Pete Carroll leaving Seattle.
Yeah, what a great coach. What an amazing, just leader of people, the consistency at which he's operated with. I got tremendous respect for him, just especially going against him in the division for the last 7 years. But I think a lot of the values and the principles, Jim, that he has in terms of the energy, the competitiveness, the way that he pours into his players, where you're uplifting. And, I think what great coaches do is they make people they're around in situations they're a part of better. And Pete Carroll is one of those guys that comes to mind when I mention that. And so the ultimate competitor, I think what I appreciate the most about him is as he navigated his coaching journey, being able to figure out exactly how they wanted to do things. And man, did they have an identity with the teams that he's coached, with how they played, how they enjoyed, the consistency, but also being at your best when your best was required. And Coach Carroll is a stud. And if I'm sitting up here being able to do that as long as he did, holy shit, will that be impressive.
How young your team is, you guys have some players going through a playoff run for the first time. Is there anything you handled differently with them, maybe as opposed to the way you handled it before?
No, I think you acknowledge that it's a great opportunity, but I think we want to be consistent in our approach, Sarah. A lot of the things that this team has done so well, especially with whether you want to say it's a reset or a refocus from the bye on, it's like, hey guys, let's continue to trust the process, continue to trust one another. Let's go, have a great week of preparation, but let's attack this thing with an opportunity, an urgency, but an enjoyment while we're doing it. And I think that's the way that this team has played. I think the veteran leaders, a lot of these guys that have been in big time games, conference championships, Super Bowls, they know it's a more important game in terms of, hey, if you win, you advance. If not, your season ends. But I don't think you want to press. I think the atmosphere and environment is going to be outstanding, but I don't think you want to get too far outside the framework of the things that allowed us to be in this position.
Following up on that same vein, the last few years you've been in this position has been Super Bowl or bust. Not so much this year. Where's your mentality about where your team is heading into this game?
My mentality is enjoying, every single day and the chance to be able to do it for people that you really appreciate, care about, and having the values and principles guide our everyday approach. And really, attack the opportunity that these guys have earned, and that's to be able to go play on the road in a great wild card atmosphere at Detroit. You know that they're going to be rocking on Sunday night, and so we're going to enjoy it. I've never gotten too caught up in the outside expectations. I know when you guys ask questions what they've been, but this team, this journey that this team has been on, and all the different things that they've navigated, has sure made it fulfilling to be a part of it, and you want to keep it going as long as you can. It's huge. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think it really takes all 11 to run the football efficiently. I think the coaches have done a good job putting together good game plans, but ultimately it's about the players. We've had continuity up front. We've got tight ends, receivers that are willing to be able to contribute and do a lot of the dirty work that you don't often see in some of those circumstances and situations. And I think Kyron Williams has been outstanding. He's got a great feel. I think he's got a great understanding. If a play is sometimes blocked for 4, he's usually getting 7 or 8. I think Ronnie Rivers and Royce Freeman have done a good job, and it's been huge. It's allowed us to be able to be on track, and you can present a lot of different things if you're able to do both efficiently, and I think that's what good offenses do.
Sean, you guys look at tape, they'll look at tape, but does your familiarity with Jared's game, strengths and weaknesses, give you any advantage at all?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's been a couple years. They've been one of the top upper echelon offenses. He's been part of some really good offenses here that he's led the way. So his resume is it speaks for itself. But there's going to be key and critical factors in every single game that are going to be in alignment with us trying to be able to go win this football game. And he's a great quarterback, and we got to do a good job of trying to slow their offense down with him at the switch.
We'll wrap up with you, Gary. Is there anything that I'm thinking of, like New Orleans back in 2018, that you learned in terms of your approach and mentality going into a situation where the environment's going to be in a dome, crazy? Anything you took from that experience?
Yeah, that was, it's funny that you asked that, is because I think this is probably be the closest thing to that. And that was wild. I mean, that was a constant, and they did a great job of sustaining the noise. And so there's a premium on the nonverbal communication, especially offensively, being able to do a great job with that. We always try to do that, but this is a different level of it, because even if you can kind of hear a little bit verbally, you're able to kind of work through some different things. This will be, guys, we got to almost operate where we're fully, in the absence of, our ability to communicate verbally. And so how well can we do that? How urgent and how much can we have ownership and clarity, coaches and players alike? And it's funny that you mentioned that, because that's probably the game that comes to mind, given, dome, the way the noise is kind of funneled, and it'd be crazy, Gary.
And is there anything that you personally, experienced maybe in that environment, that going back into one like that you'll either do different or the same?
I think it's just learning in terms of how important the communication is, and having a good streamlined process where the players have ownership. Ultimately, Matthew, as soon as something's coming in through the headset, then he knows exactly what it is, and how efficient can we be with the overall communication, and how decisive can we be as coaches and myself with some of the decisions where 40 seconds or 25 seconds out of those quarter changes or clock stoppages, that's going to be super important for us. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Hey, guys, locker room's open, and we'll let you know.